Comrade R.G. Mugabe and his family are safe and sound, and their security is guaranteed.
When it comes to matters of protecting our revolution, the military will not hesitate to step in.
Hello, yes, and a very good evening to you. Welcome to Africa Tonight, a window to your African continent. I am Palisa Mujiminyani. Now, tonight with a story that's been keeping the whole of Africa abuzz. Zimbabwe is under the control of the military. 2 days after its army chief warned President Robert Mugabe against purging the ruling party's senior ranks. Now, these are the visuals from the streets of Harare, where life seems to be going on a normal pace. And armored personnel carriers and troops were deployed onto the roads leading towards Harare on Tuesday, a day after Army Chief General Constantino Chimuenga warned the military may intervene after Mugabe fired Mnangagwa last week. Now, while the streets might be abuzz with activities, the airport and other prominent installations have thick army presence. NN7's Audrey Chimwanda, my colleague who is in Harare right now as we speak, reports that there is an area of silence at the recently renamed Robert Gabriela Mugabe International Airport. Now, joining us now live from Harare is NN7's Audrey Chimwanda. Audrey, a very good evening to you. Hello, Ms. Chimwanda, are you with us?
Hi, police. I do hope you can hear me.
Wonderful. Audrey, what's happening right there in Zimbabwe? How is the mood like? You know, and I'm sure you've arrived safely right there at Robert Gabriela Mugabe International Airport. What is happening? Please give us the updates.
Valisa, thank you for having me. I can confirm that I landed at what is now known as Robert Mugabe, Gabriel Mugabe International Airport. It appeared as if business, it was business as usual, but just looking at the atmosphere, a lot of tension, cautious behavior being observed by the officials there. And we saw quite a bit of army presence that was there. I can confirm that passengers that were coming into the airport as they tried to leave the airport were being searched, and identification was being asked for. And there is army presence right from the gate of the airport as you reach Robert Gabriel Mugabe Airport. There's army presence right up to the terminal.
Okay, and maybe have you seen any army, just right there in at the airport? What is happening? Do you see maybe police forces there?
There's definitely army that is present, Palesa. I can confirm that I saw quite a bit of army personnel that were present there and obviously manning the international airport, which is definitely one of Zimbabwe's national key points. And as you know, the army had mentioned that they're intervening and they're making sure that there is peace. And the airport is one of those areas that you want to make sure that, it is protected and peace prevails in any country. If you are aware that President Jacob Zuma, being the chair of SADC, had sent a delegation here to Zimbabwe to try and help with negotiations, with talks between the military and President Robert Mugabe's G40 faction and whatever other factions that there may be in ZANU-PF. And I can confirm to you that delegation was turned away at the airport by the army, who made it very clear that there is no need for any intervention at this point and that they have everything under control.
So are you confirming that the South African delegation has actually been turned away from Zimbabwe airport or from the Robert Gabriela Mugabe airport, and they're saying that they don't need any intervention from South Africa or from SADC? Is that what you've just said?
Absolutely, Palesa. I can confirm that President Jacob Zuma's delegation from SADC, that he had, tried to get to come over to have some kind of intervention in this process, has been turned away. We do know that South Africa has always practiced quiet diplomacy when it comes to issues that affect Zimbabwe. We do know that the president, in the afternoon, he made a statement and he said that I spoke to the president, who has confirmed that he is indeed confined to his house and indeed that he is safe. But at this point, I can confirm that the army in Zimbabwe feel that they have everything under control. There is no need for any SADC or any other regional bloc to come and intervene in the process.
And Audrey, then what does it say, what does it say, for South Africa, especially now that they've been turned back, back to South Africa? What does it say to Zimbabweans as a whole? And where exactly are we confirming that maybe it could be that, yes, President Robert Mugabe is definitely under house arrest, because even now he hasn't even released a statement, or neither his wife hasn't even also released a statement. Even now it's only the army that is actually communicating. What does it say for Zimbabweans?
Palesa, I can confirm that ever since the Army General came out and made the statement, the presser that he made, we haven't actually heard a word from President Robert Mugabe or his wife. We do know that we got a statement, though, from ZANU-PF, of course, condemning the presser that the Army commander had given, stating that they will not hesitate to intervene, which is what they've done by now. They are in control. The streets are very quiet, Palesa. We haven't heard anything from the first family. The airport itself was very quiet. I think I saw about 4 planes, which is very rare, because I can confirm to you that this is an airport that I use often when I come home. There's always quite a bit of activity, but it was not business as usual in terms of the atmosphere. But in terms of operations, everything is going on just fine.
Okay, Audrey, just be with us right there on the line, because we will definitely be getting back to you. And now let's also listen into what ANN7's correspondent, Frank Chikowa, filed earlier on with Audrey Chimwanda during the day.
We uphold the gallant role taken by the Zimbabwe Defense Forces in defense of Zimbabwe's constitution and to normalize the situation within the ruling ZANU-PF. When a revolution is unfolding, it is difficult for a political practitioner to be able to tell you exactly what will happen. But the day will tell.
It might be delayed, but it will always happen. The solution to any coup, to any takeover that might be done now is an election. And we know that an election is coming. Otherwise, with this situation that we have now, we are looking towards a free and fair election. Because now we will easily see the intervention of the international community and other bodies that would like to see standard elections being done in Zimbabwe.
It's a sad day for the tenets of democracy. The reason being that, whenever you see the military getting involved in civil politics, it's a worrying situation, particularly for Zimbabwe right now, where we were, on an overdrive for voter registration, expecting the elections and also expecting that we were going to unseat the current regime via a credible election. Now the military moving in sort of sends shivers to the whole democratic movement, sends shivers to the whole hope that the Zimbabweans had for regime change.
The situation is eased a bit in the capital, Harare. The parliament building behind me had been cordoned off since morning. As of now, people are now being allowed to pass through. Frank Chikowa, ANN7, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Now, the political parties too are maintaining a studied silence on the matter.
The military has taken over in order to usher in a dispensation in which self-correction is needed. Firstly in the party, and it will also pilfer to the country. The army has decided to stay away from getting the power, and their intention is to make sure that what we had seen for the past few months or so could possibly degenerate into violent clashes if they are left unattended, and hence they've come in to ensure that those issues are attended to. The army generals are quite cognizant of what the SADC and the United Nations, as well as the AU protocols, say with respect to issues of civilian authority. And it is for this reason why they've said that in the shortest possible time, they would want to ensure that normalcy retains and the power is given to those that are supposed to be running the country. And most critical too is the fact that they have said, let all functionaries that ensure that the state is running continue to operate.
The majority of the people of Zimbabwe do not support a coup or a military takeover
but the majority of Zimbabwe, they want a political change. After 37 years of Mugabe's rule, they believe that there must be change. So there is a division in terms of how then do you deal with the current situation.
It's not the first time that the military has been involved in operation in Zimbabwe. You've got to understand we've got a program called Command Agriculture, which is the most successful program, which was chaired by the ousted Vice President, Emmerson Mnangagwa, which was there to ensure that we've got food and that we don't import maize and so forth. It went very well. No one complained about them leading that program so that we get food. The military, too, has been involved in the building of hospitals, schools, evacuation. No one says anything about that. So there is absolutely nothing wrong with the military being involved because it is quite constitutional, and at the end of the day, it is a military for the people.
Now, just to keep you updated on the matter, my colleague Audrey Chumwanda, who is at Harare right now, we spoke to her earlier on, and she did mention that the South African delegation has actually been turned back to South Africa because they're saying that Zimbabwe's army is saying that they don't need any international intervention at the moment. So that is the story right now that we are updating you with. South African delegation has actually been turned back to South Africa. And now it's over to my colleague Stephanie Jansen van Vieren, who takes a closer look at the possibilities that lie ahead for Zimbabwe. Over to you, Steph.
Well, thank you so much, Palesa. Now let's take a look at the possibilities for Zimbabwe in the possible future. The first possibility is ZANU-PF will choose a new leader in the Special Elective Conference, and he or she will be the interim president till the general elections in July 2018. Taking a look at the next possibility there, the ousted Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa, he will return to Zimbabwe and replace Mugabe as the president. Now, your next possibility there, number 3, the army continues with its control until the next elections. Our next possibility coming in there, Zimbabwe goes for an early election. And then the last possibility that we have identified, Mugabe is allowed to continue with his term after army has removed the criminals. Now, moving on, let's take a look at the 5 possibilities as to why the army intervened in this matter. Now, the first reason there, the president was failing to carry out his executive role due to old age. The next possibility there, President Mugabe wanted to bring in Grace Mugabe as his successor. The next possibility there, the army respects Vice President Mnangagwa, and his removal was a possible trigger. The next possibility, as we move on to possibility number 4, the war veterans were unhappy with Mugabe's policies. And then we do have possibility number 5, Zimbabwe's economic situation was deteriorating due to political instability. Now, also taking a look at what this means for South Africa, it's likely to be a rise in influx of refugees from Zimbabwe if the situation worsens. The next one there, influx may create social tensions and pressure on the local economy. And then the last implication we have there for South Africa, SA may be looked upon for diplomatic intervention in the matter. Well, that's all from me. It's back to you, Palesa.
Well, thank you so much, Steph. You know, just moving on now with the story, President Jacob Zuma, on behalf of Southern African Development Community, SADC, has expressed concerns over the unfolding political situation in Zimbabwe. And earlier today, President Jacob Zuma spoke to President Robert Mugabe, who indicated that he is confined to his home, but says he is fine. Well, the president, in his capacity as a chairperson of the Southern African Development Community, has sent Minister of Defense and Military Veterans Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngakula and the Minister of State Security Bongani Bongo to Zimbabwe to meet with the President Robert Mugabe and the Zimbabwean Defense Force. But then now, as we heard from our ANN7 reporter there, Audrey Chimwande, she told us that South African delegates were actually sent back.
As SADC, we are very concerned about the situation in Zimbabwe. We would like to call for calm and restraint, particularly to the Defense Force and all security forces in Zimbabwe. I have also contacted His Excellency President Mugabe, whom I had time to talk to, and he is fine, but confined in his home. I've also managed to get the briefing about the situation in Zimbabwe, but of course, given the seriousness of the situation, I've taken a decision to send an envoy to be able to contact the leaders of the Defense Force who have undertaken these operations, but also to meet with President Mugabe so that we have a more clear picture of what is happening in Zimbabwe.
The situation in Zimbabwe is a worrisome development. You must remember that this is not the first time that we experience regime change in Africa. Zimbabwe has always been a nightmare. It has always been a headache to the international governance system, to those people who control and rule the world. Zimbabwe is not, this is not coming as a surprise, because we knew all along that after Botswana, we know Botswana is in their hands. The next thing was Zimbabwe.
And now joining us live is Tino Mabeu, social political commentator, live right here on studio. And we also have Vasu Gondan, an executive director of African Center for the Constructive Resolution on Disputes, live on Skype. We also are joined by Dr. Charles Sinkala, an international political analyst, live in studio. Say a very warm welcome to ANN7. A very warm welcome.
Thank you very much.
And so where to from here with this crisis, or what I can call a crisis that's happening in Zimbabwe? Let's start with you, Mr.
Let me start by greeting my fellow countrymen that I know are already anxious. They are in awe. They don't understand what is happening. But that is the case that you are facing now. Right, I can continue now. Guys, we are in a crisis, that is for sure. But this crisis has been precipitated by nobody else apart from President Mugabe himself. President Mugabe put the army into politics by himself since 1980, and he has always survived elections, rigging through the use of the army, through using force. So now the army is coming back and saying, no, 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 no. You have done enough, your wife is disrespectful, you are failing to manage the economy, you must go out. And then he turns around and says, I don't want to go. But the same people that he was propping up and that have always been propping him up as well are saying, enough is enough, he has got to go. So where do we find ourselves in? We find ourselves in a kind of freedom, because we have been under bondage for 37 years, according to us, especially the youth. So our feeling is our freedom has come, and we want to congratulate the Defense Forces in taking such a very bold step. You know, we never thought of Mugabe being under house arrest in our lifetime. We thought maybe he will only be under house arrest as a corpse. But this is happening. It's a new turn in our democracy, and we really support it.
So let's move on to you. You know, Mr. Hapua is saying that Zimbabweans are actually very happy and that Mugabe is actually under house arrest. Are we confirming that Mugabe is seriously or definitely under arrest? Are we saying that this is a coup in Zimbabwe happening?
As much as I prophesize and I advocate for peace in Africa and in the world, I'm equally very happy. You know, when I heard about the news of what is happening, I was very happy about the Zimbabweans and the rest of Africa. Many contradicting stories has showed that, you know, people, they're only looking at it as the problem which has just come up now. The problem started in 2000. You know, when Mugabe got married to Grace, you know, or when they got Grace Mugabe. And the problem's been building up from there. We saw what was happening when the white farmers were chased away, and all the economic turmoil, and also the influx of the inflation, which went to 97 billion and all that type of thing. So all these things has been building up into the Zimbabweans. And I'm quite even shocked if when President Zuma says, you know, this has just happened now, and they hope things work out nicely. But the diplomatic bilateral relationship between South Africa and Zimbabwe has really caused a lot to the Zimbabweans. That's why most of them, they're even frustrated. I can take
Let
you
me
back
just cut you there for a while there, because I also have another guest there. We have also Lovemore Peter Chukucha, who is the PDP provincial spokesperson, on the phone. A very good evening to you, sir. Mr. Chukucha, are you with us right here on Skype? A very good evening to you. Okay, we also have Vasu as well on Skype, joining us live tonight here on NN7 Africa Tonight. Vasu, a very good evening to you. Are you with us?
Yes, Palisa, good evening.
Wonderful. We have our guest on the studio, and then one of the guests was saying that the problem started actually when Mr. Mugabe, Robert Mugabe, actually married Grace Mugabe. What do you have to say about this matter?
Well, I think, it's evident that Zimbabwe has had a political crisis for a long time. We have seen this over many years, and I think it has merely come to a fore now with the firing of the vice president, which was an event that triggered the current developments in the country. But I think it is correct to say that Zimbabwe had many political crises over the last decade or so.
Okay, and then what does it say maybe about South Africa? Where does it put us in South Africa, in what's happening right now in Zimbabwe?
Well, the role of South Africa is twofold. The first is President Zuma is the chair of SADC, and so he will act in his capacity as the chair of SADC, where SADC has an organ that is having Zimbabwe as a member state, will have to intervene at some level if the situation deteriorates in Zimbabwe. So that's the one role that President Zuma has. The second is the destinies of South Africa and Zimbabwe are very closely tied, economically, politically, socially. We have, as you know, many Zimbabweans in South Africa. Obviously, there would be a lot of concern amongst the Zimbabweans about the situation in their home country. But also, South Africa has extremely close economic ties with the Zimbabwe. And so President Zuma has a responsibility to ensure that the situation in Zimbabwe does not deteriorate any further.
Okay. Vasu, thank you so much for joining us. Please just, stick there, and we will definitely be getting back to you, right back to you here at studio. So earlier on you spoke about, especially, Grace Mugabe, where they actually, you said that the problem started when Robert Mugabe married Grace Mugabe. Are you perhaps, maybe, can you say or can confirm that maybe we can say that Robert Mugabe is actually the victim of his own bedroom, or he listens more to the wife? Are you saying that maybe Grace Mugabe could have been the one actually controlling Zimbabwe indirectly?
It could be a very huge percentage. It's evident that we have witnessed that the way she portrays her power, she thinks it's a domestic organization where she can dictate to the vice president, who complained very bitterly, on many occasions. I met the delegation a few days ago from outstated Emerson Mnangagwa, where they mentioned that she could come to his office and dictate whatever she wants. So in addition to among of all other problems Zimbabwe has faced in terms of leadership and in terms of external forces which has come, I think she has largely influenced the decisions. And President Mugabe, I may call him president now because he's still the president, yes. He was a very good leader. He liberated Zimbabwe, and everything was all right until, like I mentioned, 2000, where things started deteriorating because of also the people also took advantage of his age. And also his incapacitation. Even now, he cannot actually, execute the presidential duties effectively. And some of the documents he rubber stamps. Even I can give you an example of what happened after he fired his vice president. I mean, he called a cabinet minister, and he is a cabinet meeting where he said...
So I'm just going to have to cut you there, just, as a matter of time. We also have on the phone line Lovemore Peter Chukucha, who is the PDP provincial spokesperson, live on the phone. Lovemore, very good evening to you. What can you tell us about the crisis that is happening in Zimbabwe right now? Can you give us an update of what is happening?
Good evening, viewers all over the world. Like what we're seeing on our televisions and on social media, there is a crisis in Zimbabwe. As much as we are happy about what is taking place, what people have never expected to happen to the so-called powerful Robert Mugabe, to be said he is confined and is under house arrest in Zimbabwe. It is a quite happy development, but we shouldn't be fooled by ZANU-PF functions fight into believing that actually it's going to change or make us win the elections in 2018. ZANU-PF is at war with itself over succession issue with the La Costa and the G40. The functions are generally fighting to choose who is the next chief thief that will guarantee their continued looting in Zimbabwe. We should also try to think about after Mugabe era. This is what people should think and put forward. There is a need of a national transition authority to take over and create a soft landing to prepare for a proper, free and fair election, so that we have no repeat of the past elections whereby ZANU-PF is competing itself. So as PDP has been always being the advocate of National Transition Authority, it is quite clear now to every Zimbabwean that it is a real need, because without that there is no another government that we are expecting to happen in Zimbabwe in the next coming election.
Well, thank you so much, Lovemore. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut you there, just a matter of time. That was Lovemore, the spokesperson of the provincial PDP. And I also want to thank Mr. Vasu as well, who was joining us live on Skype. And I also want to thank our studio guest there. We have also Mr. Tina Mabeu. Thank you so much. And thank you very much, sir, for joining us right here on Africa Tonight. Mukhaisu, that was all we had for you for Africa Tonight. Thank you for joining us right here on ANN7 TV First, Fast and Live.